And I'm joined by our Bureau Chief from Pakistan, Anas Malik. Anas, how has this deal been brought about? And coming of China and Saudi Arabia together, how is it going to change the region of Gwadar?
Karthik, by and large, if you look at it, it is Pakistan and China who are involved in the China-Pakistan economic corridor, since it's a bilateral project. But it was the need of the time on the as what the Pakistani side says, because China does not have that equipment or capacity to extract oil or to invest in that oil sector onto that Balochistan front compared to that of Saudi Arabia, and that is one of the reasons that the Pakistani side has indeed pushed for the Saudi investment to come in, for Saudi Arabia to be made a partner in the China-Pakistan economic corridor. And remember, the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, when he was visiting Beijing late last year in November, he actually convinced the Chinese Premier that Saudi Arabia should be made a part of this China-Pakistan economic corridor, and only after that, after Beijing's nod, Saudi Arabia was given a formal approval, and now we're seeing that next month the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is to come to Pakistan. Now what we can confirm is the fact that the modalities of this petrochemical complex have been laid out, they've been agreed upon, and Mohammed bin Salman will just be flying into Pakistan to sign that MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. After that, formally, the construction work on this $10 billion dollars worth oil refinery will begin in Gwadar.
But what's the inside story? Anas, how was this deal brought about? Who were the players? Can you give us the detail of who were the individuals who were working on this project?
Well, it is more to do with the, as I said, it is more to do with the Chinese interest. The Pakistani side, mainly there are two people who have been pushing for it. One is the Minister for Maritime Affairs, Mr. Ali Zaidi, and the other is the Economic Minister for Finance, Asad Umar. Those who have been personally, on a personal note, have been pushing, and that is what the Pakistani diplomatic sources claim, that had it not been for these two ministers, this project would not have been possible to be executed on ground by the Saudi government, or even the fact that the involvement of Saudi government would not have been made possible at first. Yes, Karthik.
Thank you, Anas. The US President Donald Trump has warned Turkey of economic devastation if the attacks took place on Kurdish forces. Now, Trump tweeted, and I quote, "Starting the long overdue pullout from Syria while hitting the little remaining ISIS territorial caliphate hard and from many directions will attack from existing nearby base if it reforms will devastate Turkey economically if they hit Kurds. Likewise, do not want the Kurds to provoke Turkey," unquote. The Kurds make up the majority of the US allied fighters operating in Syria in the war against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. The Turkey, on the other hand, views some Kurdish groups in region as a terrorist organization. Turkey is the United States' only ally in the region, had partnered with the US in the fight against the Islamic terror group. Now, the Turkish President Erdogan lashed out at the US National Security Advisor John Bolton last week. Erdogan said that the Bolton has made a big mistake in thinking that the US withdrawal was contingent upon Turkey's pledge not to attack the Kurdish fighters. And I'm joined by Daniel Pagani, our Bureau Chief from West Asia in Amman. Daniel, tell me that this withdrawal, what's the sense of time you're getting in terms of withdrawal of the American troops from Syria? And will it really impact the Kurdish fortune, because they were at the forefront of fighting ISIS and actually successfully resisted them in many areas?
I will start by answering to your last question. So will it impact the Kurds? Yes, it will impact the Kurds. It won't impact their military operations, since the United States forces will keep carrying on airstrikes from neighboring Iraq. Iraq has a huge presence of US troops and US Air Force. Therefore, jet fighters will take off from there and bomb the Islamic State positions which are still remaining in the desert areas close to Syria. It impacts the Kurdish people and the Kurdish fighters politically. Of course, it exposes them to a possible offensive from Ankara. Ankara, remembers, consider these Kurdish forces as terrorists. They consider them linked to a Kurdish party which has been fighting an insurgence against the Turkish forces. So the Americans pulling out, which is going to happen in the coming months, means that there will be an empty space where they were, most likely will be taken by the Syrian government forces, to whom Kurds have requested help.
But isn't that ironical, Daniele, that someone's freedom fighters is someone's terrorist, and the Kurds find themselves in a position where one country thinks that they support terrorism, whereas the Kurds themselves were at the forefront of fighting ISIS?
I need to ask you to reframe the question. I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Daniele, my question was that doesn't it make the position of the Kurdish leadership or the autonomous areas where Kurds are difficult, whereby an important country like Turkey finds them as terrorists? So in long run, how does it impact them? Because ultimately they are the neighbors, Turkey, not United States of America. I think there's a bit of an audio problem. Thank you, Daniele, for joining me. My colleague Daniele Pagani from Amman, he was telling us about how this will impact the Kurdish leadership, because after all, the Kurds were at the forefront of the fighting ISIS, but now Turkey has different interests, and Turkey feels that a strengthened Kurd leadership means that the areas where Kurds live in Turkey will also get affected and create a demand for a new nationality, whereas they are the ethnic minorities now in some parts of Turkey. Britain's future arguably never looked so uncertain. The British lawmakers are set to vote on Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal. Will a deal with the European Union find any takers? That's a million-dollar question. The Prime Minister will later today address the Parliament. She fears the planned exit from the European Union could be derailed. Theresa May, a little while ago, delivered a speech in the city of Stoke-on-Trent.
Nobody has yet come up with an alternative Brexit deal that is negotiable and that actually, nobody has come up with an alternative Brexit deal that is negotiable and that delivers on the result of the referendum. And that's what we must remember. This is not just about negotiating a deal, it's about negotiating a deal that delivers on the result of the referendum, taking back control of money, laws and borders, but also ensures that we do it in a way that maintains jobs, maintains security, protects jobs and security, and protects our union.
The Prime Minister said it was likely that the lawmaker would block Brexit altogether. She fears that the chances of Brexit being blocked are higher than Britain leaving European Union without a deal.
Well, I'm working to ensure that we get members of Parliament voting for the deal tomorrow. I believe it is important that we deliver on this result, that we don't see a situation where there's a risk that Parliament tries to frustrate Brexit. I think over the last few days we've seen that risk increasing. I want to ensure that we deliver on the referendum, that we leave the European Union, and I want to do it on the basis of a good deal that protects people's jobs, protects our security and protects our union.
And I'm joined by our Bureau Chief from London, Bandy Clark. Bandy, thank you for joining us on Dispatch. How will this affect Britain's economy? Will it survive the legislative shock?
Well, it all depends what happens, right? And nobody can blame any viewer for being very confused, because Brexit has been a movable feast. What Theresa May really tried to force the issue that there was only two options. There was her deal that was imperfect but did the best on the promises, or there was no deal when Britain crashes out. But the Speaker of the House threw a hand grenade last week and said, no, there can't just be your deal or no deal, that you have to come out with an alternative solution in 3 days' time. And then there was this amendment that said it would stop, that Britain couldn't go forward with a no-deal solution. No deal was not a solution. So if this amendment passes tomorrow, they might not even vote on her deal. So it's very unclear what will happen. She is angry about this. That's why she's saying that parliamentarians are trying to stop Brexit altogether. Ultimately, parliamentarians hate her deal. They don't want her deal, but they also don't want to crash out of the European Union, so they want an alternate solution. Now, if one can't be found, Brexit will be delayed, but what will happen is anyone's guess, and tomorrow it's everything to play for.
Mandy, but what happens to the credibility of the British politicians? Because if ultimately you don't respect the decision being made, which is the referendum, then what happens to the larger credibility, the message to the world?
Well, I think that's her argument, that, you vote on something, you want it to pass, and all of a sudden politicians say they know best. Of course, that's going to severely damage it. But this movement has been a cross-party movement. It's Conservative MPs are supporting Labour MPs. But yes, of course, it will lose a lot of faith between politicians and the public who democratically voted to Brexit. Like it or lump it, that is what the population decided. It will appear to the vast majority of the population, especially those who want Brexit, that the politicians decided they just knew best. So yeah, it will damage relations, but I think many politicians feel that it's a better solution than getting damaged severely economically if they do crash out. So there's lots of politicking, and everyone's going to claim they were doing the best for the people. But ultimately, it will damage relations.
But Mandy, do you think that the Theresa May will be able to get the numbers in Parliament? Does she have the numbers? Is mathematics
No, she doesn't have the numbers, and it doesn't look like she will have the numbers. Currently, she has a minority government, so anything she wants to pass at the minute, she needs the DUP. This is the Northern Irish hard-right group to support her deals through. They hate her deal because of this Irish backstop. They said they're not going to support it. If they all of a sudden change their mind, it might go through. But there's also 100 MPs on the Conservative side saying they're not going to vote for the deal either. So she has to convince a lot of people in a very short space of time to change their mind. Right now, the numbers, it's not going to go through.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you for joining me from London on this issue. The United Nations has launched its first Hindi news website in a move that is expected to provide a boost to India's efforts to make Hindi one of the official UN languages. Now, India needs support from 2/3 of the 193-member UNGA to get Hindi official status at the United Nations. Now, with the launch of the website, Hindi becomes the first non-UN Asian language to have that honor. UN is currently also using Hindi on social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter and Instagram to enhance its reach. The inauguration of the Hindi news website is set to be part of a UN pilot program to promote global rules and values using languages other than 6 official ones. The UN had last year launched a weekly news bulletin in Hindi too. The pilgrims from across the world have gathered for the Kumbh Mela that is set to begin on Tuesday in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Now, billed as the world's largest gathering of people, the year's festival is expected to be attended by nearly 120 million people. After nearly 3 years, when the case was registered, the Delhi police has filed a detailed charge sheet in Delhi's Patiala House Court against former Jawaharlal Nehru University, known as JNU, against the student union's president, Kanhaiya Kumar, in a sedition case. Now, 1,200-page long charge sheet also names former JNU's General Secretary, Sheila Rashid, and DMK leader, Mr. Raja's daughter, Aparjit Raja, along with Kanhaiya Kumar, Umar Khalid, Anirban Bhattacharya, Aqib Hussain, Mujib Hussain, Munib Hussain, Umar Gul, Rafaya Rasool and Bashir Bhatt. The charge sheet lists various sections of the IPC, including charges of sedition, voluntary causing hurt, forgery, unlawful assembly with common object, writing, criminal conspiracy, among others. Now, the sedition case from the 2016 relates to the raising of alleged anti-national slogans by the persons named in the charge sheet on the JNU campus to mark the death anniversary of Parliament attack convict Afzal Guru. Now, in the FIR, police told the court that the Kanhaiya Kumar was inciting the mob by shouting the alleged anti-India slogans along with 90 witnesses. Now, the police have attached 10 video clips as evidence in the charge sheet. The intense cold weather continues to batter parts of northern India. Temperature in the mountainous state of Himachal Pradesh plunged as the region received a light rainfall. In Kinnaur, the temperature continues to be at the sub-zero level and the situation is not likely to be better in the coming days. Now, many roads have blocked and the weather continues to deteriorate. Temperatures across Uttarakhand dipped as mild snow covered the region's high altitudes. Authorities have advised residents and tourists not to venture in the high hills. Northern parts of Jammu and Kashmir also witnessed light rains and snow. Traffic was suspended on the Srinagar-Jammu National Highway due to slippery road conditions. The Weather Office is predicting more snow in the next 24 hours.